Hi, and welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Jacob Ayers. Welcome back. Today's guest is Ari Rastegar. Ari is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, all-around great guy. Today, we're going to talk about Ari's path from getting started in his early days to where he's at today. Ari's a really unique guy. He's been investing for more than 10 years, I think, by now. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. Ari, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. It's been a long 10, 12 years.
Yes. Well, let's talk about kind of those early days, Ari. Tell us about who you are, what you do, how you got started, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, look, my dad was an Iranian immigrant. He came over here actually to study at UT in the late 70s. And after the Iranian Revolution, they killed our whole family pretty much, and he was kind of had to start from scratch. And luckily my grandparents were able to get out, but had great mom and dad. They kind of divorced early, lived mostly with my dad. My grandpa, his dream, who was my hero, him and my dad were my heroes, always wanted me to, we'd drive by these buildings together, and he'd look up at them and he'd say, one day, you should own these buildings. He thought real estate was the best investment. He'd always preach that to everybody. He'd say, buy real estate. And he was a medical doctor by trade, and didn't know much about business, but he always believed in real estate, and somehow that kind of resonated in my heart in a very visceral way. And so I kind of followed in Rastegar, obviously the name of our firm. I always think of him, when I think of that. And but to my father, who's an attorney, said to me very simply, I didn't even want to go to college, and I actually majored in English literature when I was at Texas A&M. But what most people don't know about me is I had to go to community college, 2 different community colleges, before I could get to A&M, because I was such a screw up in high school. And so I graduated top of my class from A&M, applied to 30 or 40 different law schools, got into 0 but 1. And I got it to St. Mary's in San Antonio. And they gave me a scholarship, which was nice. And I told my dad, look, I don't think I want to do this. I don't want to go to law school. He's like, you've already been accepted. He said, son, after you go to law school, you can be an exotic dancer for all I care. So I did. And during my first year of law school, I used all my scholarship money and borrowed $3,000 from one of my friend's fathers from college, and bought a single family lot on Canyon Lake, which is pretty close to San Antonio, Texas. Those of you that kind of know the Texas area. And I saw these signs that kept saying this name, Dugan, on all these houses that said sold. So I looked him up and went to his office and said, we don't know each other, but I bought that lot around the corner. You build it at cost. We'll split the profits 50-50. I'll be on the build side every day. And we built a house, sold it during framing, did 2, did 3. And I was in law school from, noon to like 4, in the library till 1 a.m, on the build side at 5 a.m. And then when 2008 hit, we lost absolutely everything. I say we, meaning me. And he was a very, very generous man. So he kind of gave me back my initial scholarship money and my investment. I paid back my investor, and my wrestling coach in high school, and I was a terrible wrestler, by the way. My best friend, who's still one of my best friends after 30 years, was my same weight class, and he was a 7-time national champion, just beat me up every day, basically.
Right. And good friend to have.
Yeah, good friend to have. But, but my coach's best friend was the head of Credit Suisse. So he ran all conduit lending for Credit Suisse and did almost 400 billion of lending and real estate lending. And he set up a dinner, and he invited me to come to New York and do some stuff. And I spent almost 6 years on Wall Street. And after working for some of the biggest names on Wall Street, I decided to open up my shop, because I thought there could be kind of a better way to do it. So so I started my own shop, and the rest is kind of history.
It's always fun to hear people's backgrounds, Ari, because so many people don't have a straight line from, point A to point B being a successful real estate investor, right? Many people come from different paths. So much like you were taught with this kind of blueprint that many people are, is to go to school, get a good education, study something hard, become a doctor, lawyer, something of that nature, right? You kind of started along that path, but somewhere you kind of veered away and took the real
I
estate
did.
path. What was it about real estate that led you to it? What interested you about it? Why real estate?
Yeah, I mean, look, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of it had to do with that initial love that I had for my grandpa and my dad that, drew me to it, to like understand like just something that was solid. And
Yeah.
I felt like I could touch it. And, I'm not the smartest guy in the world by any stretch of the imagination. My wife actually, my wife, and we have three beautiful children, and she works in the firm. My chief operating officer is actually my sister-in-law, my wife's older sister, who's absolutely brilliant. She comes from a supply chain logistics background, but when I met my wife, she was Johnny Depp's personal assistant, which is kind of like a interesting kind of path. And so I was thinking maybe entertainment, maybe this, maybe that, maybe stocks, maybe bonds. And in talking to my wife, she reminded me of a story that I guess Will Smith and Johnny had spoken about, and now is pretty public. You can Google the quote. But Will Smith, they asked him, how did you become the highest paid actor in the world? Because at one point Will Smith was as big as it gets, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he was
Right.
the guy, he's the Rock, right, of the moment, right?
Right.
And I love the Rock. He's an unbelievable man. And I love Will too. So they asked him, he said, well, look, I'm not the best looking, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the best actor, but if you and I get on a treadmill side by side, either you're getting off first or I'm going to die. So that was always my mentality. And so I didn't understand stocks and bonds, looked like a bunch of numbers on a page. I'm an English major, but I could always do the math in my head. So I didn't really have a traditional business background. And, but something really, resonated with me about homes, about like someone's homes where someone lives. And we lived in apartments growing up most of my life because we were, pretty poor living here in Austin. And, I remember these crummy apartments that we lived in. And the first apartment complex that I bought here in Austin was 23 units in the near Zilker Park. Those of
Yeah.
you that kind of know Austin, know that area, beautiful area, but just 23 units, old vintage, 40-year-old building, and the insides hadn't been touched, had a bunch of problems, leaks and plumbing, and I just saw this vision of reimagining it. And instead of we have a saying in real estate, you put lipstick on the pig, right? You kind of
Right.
you just kind of change something, maybe do a little paint. And I said, you know what? We're going to go gut this thing out. We're going to put all new electrical, all new plumbing. We're going to build technology into these things. We're going to put sensors, in the water heaters. And we're going to take, because we see ourselves as a data analytics company more than anything. We track
Okay.
data on
Interesting.
everything, on all of our properties. We've obviously grown into that. But our thesis was simple: create a better customer experience that is more value. I don't like the word cheap. I want to say inexpensive, that we could offer a class A amenity on the interior for the price of a class B or class C. So new sheetrock, new insulation, new electrical, new plumbing, new roofing. So when you walk into this unit, even though it's an older building, super well located, you're walking into a beautiful experience. And, my wife and I in the early days would go stay in the units ourselves and, check all the appliances and use everything, because we lived in apartments in New York, and, both of us kind of came from nothing. So it was important for us to make sure that our customers, that we stayed obsessed with our customers, and started out kind of small. I say small, but it was a $4 million project. And luckily a bunch of folks on Wall Street who knew I was kind of doing the work when I was working for the big guys backed me on the project, and we financed it with Freddie Mac. And now we own I don't even know how many buildings, to be perfectly honest, but I know we have about 500 acres in the Austin MSA. We're building 2,000 homes in Kyle, Texas, 900 multi-units. We own 3 acres on South Congress, 3 acres on South First, 50 acres by the airport. We're building condos in Phoenix. We're building a 26-story high-rise in Dallas. So it's it's grown a little bit over the past 6 years.
That's awesome. Let's talk about that transition you made from, you take that very first investor capital combined with your scholarship money and, what other money you could scrounge together. You buy that lot on Canyon Lake, which
Fear,
is a
all
yeah.
fear.
and you go out and you buy this lot and you partner with a developer, you develop a home, you sell it. You're like, okay, that worked. Awesome. Let's do this thing again and again.
Well, remember the years though. So it's
When was
important to
that?
remember this was 2005.
Okay.
So, I mean, you basically could have bought anything and, it'd go up and they'd get, people were getting mortgages in dogs' names. Right. And so,
Yeah, right.
luckily, my partner is very respected at the local banks and, he signed on the debt with me and, for the construction financing. But, one of the definitions of an entrepreneur that I've always really loved is entrepreneurs jump off the side of a cliff and build a plane on the way down.
Yeah, right.
And so I figured, this is something I wanted to do. And I just kept seeing these as I would drive to law school. I actually lived in Spring Branch, Texas, and there's a Spring Branch by Houston, but the Spring Branch I'm talking about is actually a little bit north of San Antonio by Canyon Lake.
Right.
For the listeners that, kind of know Texas, but I'd drive by and it was just like this. I'd see like a foundation and it'd say for sale and then sold. And so on my way to school, I just keep going back and forth, sold. And then something inside of me just kind of said, you know what? F it, let's do it. Let's try to go get it. But it was pure fear, but
sure.
And excitement. But I was able to be on the build site. So I built those houses, with my own hands alongside the workers. It was something that, I'm not very good with my hands. My wife is the technician in our house. She knows how to work all the TVs and, if anything's broken, she fixes it. I'm definitely not a manly man in that regard. But it was an experience for me to show up to, evidence class in law school and work boots and cement all over me and my teacher being like, dude, like,
what are you doing?
Where did you come from? Like, what are you doing? And but it was some of the best days and they all sold. But when the market turned, in 2007, 2008, they pulled all our interim construction loans. And so, I went from, after flipping burgers at Johnny Rockets and delivering pizzas through college, to thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have $1 million in my checking account in my early 20s. If I sell the rest of the houses we built, to walking away with my hat in my hand and, paying my investors back and, not having too much. And
let's talk about the mindset of that phase, Ari. So here you are, you've got an education, you've got yourself through law school, you're trying out this real estate thing, and you just get punched in the mouth in the 2008 kind of financial crisis, kind of lose the shirt off your back. Why'd you keep going? What made you keep doing this real estate thing, and rather than just maybe falling back on your law degree and
just
practicing
stupidity.
law?
Just pure stupidity.
So we've got fear, stupidity. These are some underlying qualities.
You know what it is? It's, you got to have grit, and, in grit, we talk about that as being this thing that, of resilience where you really push through things. But I had an inner calling, and I think we all, my book comes out in February, called The Gift of Failure. And failure truly, truly is a gift. If you have introspection. Okay. I'm a big fan of Ray Dalio and his beliefs in radical transparency, but you have to believe in something. Okay. And Steve Jobs talks about how you can't connect the dots going forward. You have to connect the dots going backwards. and you kind of see that these are little blessings. And I'm a believer, I'm a very spiritual man, and there was something deep inside of me that that knew that there was something to keep moving towards. And I know to some people that might sound cheesy, but to me, I believe that there was a better way to do this, and that this was something that I was supposed to do. Um and we just kind of kept going. But I was scared and vulnerable. And I came to learn later in life that vulnerability is power. There's a beautiful TED talk that I advise everybody to look up. I forgot the exact name, but it's something around vulnerability is powerful, or something to that extent. If you go to TED and you type in vulnerability, it'll come up. But it's a beautiful talk that just explains that you have to open yourself up, and you have to it's like the people that get in relationships. And part of the things I talk about in the book is business has nothing to do with business. This has to do with personal growth. And I'm a big Tony Robbins guy, I'm a big Napoleon Hill guy, I'm a self-help guy, and I always look on working on myself. So if
Yeah.
I'm working on a building and fixing it up, that's how I think of myself. And I looked at that failure as like, okay, like what could I have done better? And where was the misstep? What did I miss? Like what could I do there? But you have to believe in something bigger than you. And when you think about being humble, humility doesn't really mean you think less of yourself. Humility really means you think less about yourself. And so I realized during those days, I was thinking about getting rich. I'm like, I'm going to make money, and I'm
Yeah.
going to do this, and this is about me, and nah, nah, nah. And then when the focus shifted to no, like I have to think about my end user, I have to think about my customers, like this is for them, this is their home, something shifted inside of me where it became bigger than me. And what became bigger than me and not about me per se and me being a conduit, all of a sudden, for lack of a better word, magic happened.
So when you're talking about this grit and that's kind of what kept you going, would you summarize that like it was kind of like a gut feel? You had like this kind of naturally drawn like sense of purpose to deliver a good product to your end client, being your residents, or
Well, I had a
what?
why. Well, I had a why, and Simon Sinek talks about this stuff a lot. And my why in the very early days is I wanted to make my dad and my grandpa proud,
Okay, yeah,
and that was big for me. And, being an Iranian American, I'm a first generation American, born and raised in Austin, Texas, lived up and down the I-35 corridor. Um, I wanted them to be proud. And so, and I didn't want to stop, and I didn't want to quit, initially for them, and now, it's about my children and about my wife and my family. And, I always look at investing now, my kids' timeline. I look at everything and say, oh, my Isabella, our youngest, who's 1 years old. I always look, I was like, okay, so where was I when I was one? I'm pretty sure we lived, in a little shack in East Austin. So in 10 years, she'll be 10. And, and I was just trying to think
yeah,
of my investors. I'm like, okay, so, when he turns, 52, where will he be? And, how will this affect his retirement? Or when I think of our pensioners and our institutional investors, I had to depersonalize it. And if you're going to build something great, that is sustainable, that's going to be long term, that's going to outlive you. Because when you hopefully read my book is not for people that want to get a promotion at a job. My book is for the dreamers that have dreams that are so big that everybody's going to laugh you out of the room. And to do that, you have to believe in something greater than yourself. And Napoleon Hill talks about it in Think and Grow Rich, which I recommend everybody should
yeah.
read, about goal setting. And I made vision boards, and I wrote them down, and I read them out loud. And people think this stuff is really cheesy, but it works. You start to believe in things and see them be tangible. And but yeah, it was something very, very deep inside of me that I had faith that that there is a bigger purpose.
Yeah, so many people are eager, Ari, like you and I were when we were first getting started, to just buy that first deal or just get started, right? And they maybe skip over the piece of doing that groundwork and building the foundation, which is, developing themselves and you know,
You nailed it.
identifying those things, like finding out their reasons why and investing in themselves first and educating themselves, right?
You are your most important asset.
Yeah.
You're all you have. You're all you have at the end of the day. It's you. And that's why I take health so seriously. And if you Google Ari Rastegar GQ did a big
Let's get into
editorial
that.
about, you saw that, I'm sure,
Yeah.
and we've been fortunate, and you've seen, we've been in Forbes and the Journal, and it's been pretty public what I've done, and which is pretty humbling for a kid that literally came from nothing. I still read those articles and think, is that is that me, or is that somebody else? It's still a little bit bizarre, and it's kind of hard for me to read some of those articles sometimes, but I take health very seriously. And so if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to be a business person in real estate or whatever you're doing, you have to take care of yourself. And when you're on the plane, they say, if the plane were to go down, the oxygen mask drops, you have to put it over your face before you put it over the kid next to you. And that, I never understood that. I was like, what does that mean? Isn't that selfish? Shouldn't I be taking care of the person next to me? And it wasn't until later in life. And Mark Twain has a great quote. He says that, when I was 18 years old, I couldn't believe how little my father knew about the world. When I turned 25, I couldn't believe how much he learned in 7 years. And so the point is, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself. You have to invest in yourself. You have to read those books. And we live in this era where everything is on YouTube. Watch the YouTube videos. You don't need to be some millionaire and take these expensive seminars that are 20 grand with, you name the names, right? Like,
Right.
Go on YouTube, watch these things, listen to the greatest minds in the world, and just spend time investing in your own personal development and your business. I think of it like a tree. Like you're this tree, you're this trunk, and your business is the branch. So the healthier your tree is, inevitably the business or whatever you're doing will be healthier and will be more successful.
And you've seen that in your own life.
I've lived it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And you bring up an interesting point. You talk about the health component, right? Like you have to be, healthy to, continue to do these things, right? Without your health, nothing else matters, right? And you talk about that oxygen mask analogy. You have to be able to help yourself first before you can help others. I've always seen wealth in the same aspect, right? Like it's hard to make an impact on the world and help others if you don't have the wealth and the ability to help yourself first,
that's
right?
the whole purpose of wealth. Like the reason the aristocracy existed was to provide jobs, employment. I don't get into politics, and look, I see the merits on both sides of it. People ask me all the time, am I a Republican, am I a Democrat? And my answer is always very simple. I'm an American.
Yeah.
I'm an American, plain and simple. And that's really what it is. We're doing this to contribute. And that's the paradigm shift, is that when you're building something great, or you're building whatever it is, a family, a business, the analogy and the universal truths that govern these things are the same. And it can't be about you. If it's about you, you will fail. It has to be bigger than you, about something bigger than you, to provide something positive. And look, you might get that quick success, but you're going to be that, rocket that goes up and comes down. And we see these, $30,000 millionaires, as people call them, driving a Bentley, but renting an apartment. And, I don't wear watches or, do any of that stuff. It's not my thing. I'm not a car guy. But, nothing against, people that, like cars or anything, but, the focus needs to be on, what is your product? Like, what are you doing that is helping? Like what is helping, whatever it is, whether that's an analogy to real estate where you're, buying real estate to build better homes for people, or an office building that a great business can provide a great product. You always need to be thinking outside of yourself. And when you do that, I believe that the universe pushes you to a place where you'll be successful. Certainly for me, it was. And that was the big shift. And when our daughter was born, she's 8 years old now, our oldest, Victoria. I remember being in the hospital, sobbing my eyes out, thinking, oh my God, I don't even know how to take care of myself, much less take care of this little angel that's in front of me. And that was the moment where I knew it wasn't about me anymore. And that was a big shift. And, we lived in New York City. She was born in Manhattan, one of the unicorns. But I urge everybody to do introspection and do what they're doing for the right reason. And the right reason is never just going to be about you. Or could you be a beneficiary of it? Absolutely. We have to create jobs. Like we build this wealth and we build these empires so that but there's families behind that. You take investors in, that's their time that they've spent 30 years collecting their 401k, or whether it's a pension fund giving us $50 million at a clip. But behind that, there's thousands of people like that, have saved up this money so that they can retire and they can live these great lives. And you have to make sure you keep that in the forefront of your mind, that it's not about you.
Yeah, that's so great, Ari. And it's cool to see a guy like you and in your position still have that kind of grounding sense of purpose, right?
I appreciate that. And it's, I wish I could say I could take credit for it, but it's, now it's hardwired. It's who I am. And I kind of joke that, from a real estate mentality, I was a teardown. Like, as a person, when I started, I was a teardown. There was, I had a speech impediment. I had a stutter. They tried to hold me back in school. I was a terrible student in high school. I went to 2 community colleges before I got into Texas A&M. Delivered pizzas through school. The kid like me, that's not the smartest guy by any stretch. I've always been a big reader and, a lover of knowledge and, wanting to learn, which has been a gift. I certainly, all of you can do it, because I assure you that most of your listeners are much more capable than I was.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear something like that from somebody like you. When we're talking about from a listener's perspective, they might look at Ari or Rastegar and say, wow, that guy's got X, Y, Z. He's accomplished A, B, and C. But they don't see maybe the path from, those early days of, buying those single family lots and developing rental properties all the way to where you are now. So, what kind of advice could you give someone who's maybe in that early Ari kind of phase of their life, where they're trying to make that next level?
Don't stop and just don't stop. I highly recommend, there's a book called Relentless. Okay. It's written by a man named Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant's personal trainer. And the subtitle, I think, is going from good to great to unstoppable. Mm-hmm. Buy the book.
Okay.
Read it. And just don't stop. That's the key. And it sounds so simple, but success is, there's this beautiful, beautiful book called 3 Feet from Gold. Okay. And it tells this story about this guy that, went out to California, during the California gold rush, went out there, bought some equipment, got some money from friends and family, dug for some gold or whatever, found a little bit, came back, bought some equipment and started doing it, ended up being dry. And as he's walking out, he kind of sells everything for pennies on the dollar to somebody else. But that same group went up there, did a little bit of studying, and realized that the vein of how the gold mine runs actually ran the other direction, and realized he was 3 feet from gold. and success is just an inch away from where you want to quit. Right at that moment that you're about to quit is just like that last rep, whether you're doing bench presses or curls, whatever exercise you do. We all know that feeling where it's that last rep that you don't want to do. It's physics and physiology that those last 2 reps are 90% of the growth. That's the moment where you have to get up, brush off your shoulders, smack your cheeks to make them rosy, and just fucking show up.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, you could end right there with a mic drop, but I don't want to end just yet, Ari. I mean, that's all such great stuff there. Now we started to talk about the health component of things. Now I'd be remiss if we ended the episode without kind of touching base on that. I know you're really big into biohacking and all these other cool things. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing there and why. When we kind of talked about you are your best asset, right?
Absolutely. I take health extremely seriously, but I didn't before, and that was the key. I started to notice in my early 30s, I'm 38 now, that I just didn't feel good. And I've always been a hard worker, and, I kind of have that, that gift that doctors have that I can stay up for 24 hours without sleeping, no problem. And, most people wouldn't know. My wife would know, but, most people wouldn't know and kind of just keep going. But, my hair started to thin and, I had these dark circles under my eyes and I was kind of losing weight and I just didn't feel good, and anxiety was kicking in and just something was off. And I went on a journey to figure out what was wrong. And I met one of the greatest doctors in the world. His name is Dr. Jacob Rosenstein. I highly recommend all of you buy his book. It's called Defy Aging. And again, it's by Dr. Jacob Rosenstein. And he breaks down, what you should do. And it's a lot more simple than you would think. And, we talk about common sense. Problem with common sense is not so common, right?
Right.
And so I went on this journey to figure out what was going on and did food sensitivity tests and blood tests and tried paleo diets and all these different things, went in hyperbaric chambers and cryotherapy and I went after my health with the same kind of veracity that I went after business and found that my cholesterol was high, my testosterone was low, and my whole, my inflammation was high, and all these things that I just didn't know or understand. And I started managing my health the way I manage my financial statements and started eating more vegetables and started getting on the treadmill and started moving more and started taking posture seriously. And we have a peak performance trainer that's full-time at Rastegar that trains everybody in my firm.
That's
And we
so
even
cool.
go and host courses at our apartment complexes for the tenants on a weekly basis to, whether it's yoga, whether it's, some sort of outdoor activity. We're a very active firm, very diverse firm. And because the healthier you are, and you said it earlier, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And we all know that feeling. It's like when you wake up one day, whether you have the flu or you have a toothache or a bad stomach ache or a migraine, just something
Nothing
simple.
else matters, right?
Nothing else matters. Like it literally doesn't matter. And so you physically can't do anything else. And so that's science. I mean, we all know that experience that are listening. And so I decided that, health is wealth. And that's Ralph Waldo Emerson, and to me, that's where my investment is because it allows me to contribute more. It allows me to have more vitality. I was coming home to my kids exhausted after working, 10, 12-hour, 15-hour days, and I had nothing in the tank for them. But once I started taking my vitamins right, getting in the gym and putting that time in early, I had the gas in the tank to when I came home, I could be dad, I can be a father, I can be a husband, and really show up for the things that matter most. And without vitality, without energy, without health, none of this matters. And you're not going to be able to do it. You might be able to do it for a certain amount of time, but God forbid you get a cancer or something, or some kind of, disease sets in. Look at Steve Jobs, built, changed the entire world. But in his early years, he didn't take care of his health, and he tried to put a Band-Aid on a big problem. And one of the greatest visionaries on earth gone in a blink of an eye. And we see it every day. God rest, Tony Hsieh's soul, the ex-CEO of Zappos.
Yeah.
Greatest corporate culture human being to ever walk the earth. And I mean, I read that and was just like, just crushed. I mean, Delivering Happiness, his first book, changed my life, on how he treats his customers and what he did. And 46 years old, gone.
Yeah.
And so you have to cherish those moments. And obviously nothing is guaranteed in life other than death and taxes, as they say.
Yes.
I guess, everything has a risk, but I urge everybody to get on that treadmill, eat that extra salad. It's not that difficult.
Yeah.
Drink more water. It's not expensive. It's not, don't give me any of those excuses. There's perfectly good water there. You can buy a Brita filter, for $15, put the soda down,
Right.
You don't need a fancy gym membership. You can go run sprints, outside in the road, just keep it simple.
I love it. So those are some of the basic things we all know, right? You mentioned things like posture, drink water, just move, right? Those are the simple things. Tell us some of maybe the more
that's
like
90% of it, but it's the 80-20 rule. And that's the thing people miss. Like, 80% of the benefit you're going to get, and we're not after perfection. And the thing is, we're a society, especially as Americans, that we're after perfection, but perfection is a lie. Perfection is for God or the universe or nature or, whatever word that you want to use. Perfection, we are not perfect. We are striving for excellence. Excellence is what we're after, not perfection.
I love that.
Failing forward, as John Maxwell says best, is the key. Fail forward. Make the failure. Failure is part of success. You have to fail to be successful. If you didn't fail, you will never be successful. They're two sides of the same coin.
If only I knew of a good book called The Gift of Failure that was coming out soon.
It'll be there. It'll be on your desk. As soon as it comes out, I assure you.
I love it. Ari, hey, it's been so much fun talking with you, talking about things like health, wealth, just living a well-balanced life is so important. I think anybody can take something away from this episode, and I'm sure they have. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up with our famous lightning round, just a series of questions we fire at you. Are you up for it? All right. The first question is, what was your biggest hurdle getting started investing in real estate? And then what'd you do to overcome that?
Just being scared to death. And I called my dad and I said, this is what I want to do. And in the middle of me talking, he said, son, go for it. And I just did it.
Yeah, I love it. Just overcoming that fear just with action, right?
Massive action. Right when you have the idea, hit it.
I love it. Ari, do you have a personal habit that contributes to your success?
Transcendental meditation.
Oh, okay. And what exactly does transcendental meditation mean?
Transcendental meditation, you can Google it, is a particular style technique of meditation. There's a million different types, but transcendental meditation, or TM, is the particular modality that I practice. I've been practicing for years. I actually heard about it the first time from Ray Dalio. He's a huge proponent of it. Howard Stern's a huge proponent of it. Jerry Seinfeld. And once you kind of Google it, you'll see that some of the biggest and most successful people in the world practice that particular modality. That's what got me into it. I do it 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon, every day without failure.
I love it. Yeah. Awesome. I've been doing some self-guided meditation for on and off for several years now, but I think it does help me when I'm in a group for sure.
I highly recommend everybody, if you want to do yourself a favor, go find a transcendental meditation course. It's in pretty much every city in the country. Find the course, go take it. It's an hour a day for 3 days or something like that. Learn it, do it, and you can thank me later.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. All right. Do you have an online resource you find valuable in your day-to-day?
YouTube.
Yeah.
I love YouTube. Everything's there. It's free. It's awesome. I have a premium membership. It's the best $9 I spend a month. That the ads don't come in and annoy me, but I just go on there and find different great people talking about different things and just listen, watch in the car, just kind of just feeding myself that knowledge, and it's free. And I think it's just such an untapped resource because people don't value things that are free. We think that we have to pay $10,000 to go to a seminar to get any value, and that's bullshit. Like YouTube you can take MIT courses on YouTube for free.
It's crazy.
MIT. So, and I do, and I watch the courses, and I watch the greatest professors in the world talk about all the topics that I know nothing about. And I'm sitting there in class in MIT for free. Do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. YouTube, we won't even link it in the show notes. You know where to find it. All right, next question in the lightning round. This is a question I'm excited to ask someone who's educated in English literature. That is, what book would you recommend to the listeners and why? You've already rattled off several books so far, but do you have one that kind of sticks out in your mind as your go-to recommendation?
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Buy it, read it. You can get a used copy on Amazon, literally for free. All you pay is the shipping for $3.99. Buy a used copy, literally $0. Like you could go to used and it'll be 1 cent or $0 if you pay $3.99 or $4.99 in shipping, and it'll be the best money you ever spent. But do what's in the book.
When I first picked up that book, Ari, I had so many recommendations on it, and I found it to be kind of a difficult read. It's written, I don't know when, a while back ago, and it was written in a language.
1900s.
Yeah, it was written in a language that I was like, what is this talking about? And it took me a long time to read through it, and finally, just one time, it finally sunk in.
It's not a book to be read. It's a book to be studied. And that's the difference.
Okay.
It's a study manual. You have to think of it as a textbook that you study at school, that you're reading chapters that have questions at the end. It is not a read that you read through. And that's the biggest misconception. I'm glad you said that. Like, it's not a book that you just read it and you put it down. It's a book that you study. You go, and it even says when you get to chapter 8, go back to chapter 2. When you're in chapter 7, go back to chapter 3.
Yeah.
Write this thing down before you finish this chapter. Don't go to that, so meaning you have to look at that as a study manual. I've read it probably 200 times without exaggeration. My dad gave it to me when I was 14 the first time, and I've probably read it 200 times. It still sits on my desk to this day, still underwriting, it still underlines in it. I buy new copies of it all the time. It's meant to be studied, digested, read one chapter, reread it again. If you didn't understand a word, pick up the dictionary, look it up. You're right. It was written in a different time period where some of the words are different. But I assure you, it has jewels in it that are timeless beyond measure. It is the mother of all self-help books.
The best $3.99 you can buy on Amazon today. Ari, we'll link that book and all the others you mentioned. I've got a few jotted down here. Relentless by Tim Grover.
Oh, read Relentless. That one is just a read that you'll just read. It'll just give you goosebumps and just get you hype. I mean, you'll be in the shower with hands over your heads, like ready to take over the world.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link all those books in the show notes. Great recommendations there. Last question in the lightning round, Ari. If you were to go back and give advice to your 20-year-old self to get started investing in real estate, what would you tell 20-year-old Ari?
Well, 20-year-old Ari was an idiot, so I don't think he would have listened to me. I don't think he would have listened to me. He was a lunatic. But I think in those early years, I would have listened to my father more, and I would have studied some basic business stuff, and I would have taken some accounting classes and some basic business courses, because later on in life, a lot of real estate is accounting, depreciation, understanding rent rolls, balance sheets, P&Ls, and not having a formal business as education. I had to learn those things a little bit later on in life, which was a little bit of a handicap for me early, and it was really frustrating. So I would urge everybody who wants to be in real estate. And again, you can find this on YouTube. You don't need to go get a master's degree in accounting, but I would learn basic accounting, and how that relates to real estate. And if I would have learned that earlier, it would have saved me a lot of pain.
I love it. All right. Hey, this has been a really fun conversation, a fun episode. I'm so glad we got you on. As we're wrapping up here, is there any parting piece of advice that you'd like to leave with the audience members?
Go for it.
I love it. Well, if they're going to go for it and reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing, want to connect with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, I mean, you could go to rastegarproperty.com, and then there's a contact form. Somebody eventually it'll probably get to my desk. We're a firm about 100 now, but if you write a heartfelt enough message, it'll eventually get to me. But it's pretty easy to look me up. I mean, you can Google my name, Ari Rastegar. You can type in Rastegar, and it's very easy to find us, or go to rastegarproperty.com, like I mentioned. And we'd love to hear from you all.
Other than LinkedIn, are there any social media platforms you're active on?
So at Rastegar is my verified Instagram account.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, I don't manage it. I have someone that looks at it for me. If you want to know more about me, I would go to my wife's Instagram, and hers is at Kelly Kells, which is KELLIE KELS. And she posts a lot about our family and about the business. And her account is verified as well. But if you really want to know who I am, look at her Instagram, and you'll see my family, and you'll see all the things that I really value in this world.
Awesome. And just one thing I'll add to the audience members, if you want to go over to Rastegar, what's the website? Rastegarproperty.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, rastegarproperty.com. From there, I was digging around this morning. So many great ebooks and quick guides to download there. Tons of content. So definitely go check those out. I think there's something there for everyone. All right. Hey, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I hope to get you back on in the near future.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye, buddy.